Here's the Deal is brought to you by VEBS, Veteran Essential Business Services. We are your air support. We have your six. Hey, everybody. How's it going? This is Chris Flowers, your host of Here's the Deal. As you can tell, the audio has been upgraded. Working with my main man over here, Mario, outside the wire, Aguirre of Fallen 360. I mention him all the time on the show. We literally just went down, bought some new gear, tested it out. As you can hear, much better upgrade than before. I actually am recording from Fallen 360 Studios here with Mario, and just wanted to do, like I said, what we try to do here at Here's the Deal is that we're trying to inspire veterans to pursue their passions and pursue their dreams, right? So part of it is giving you the tools that I have from the financial sector to help you start the business, or if you already have an up and going business, run it more efficiently. So I try to give you those tools. I'm going to have subject matter experts come in, and they're going to talk about different things, whether it's accounting or attorney or social media marketing, whatever that is. Okay, just like I said, just to give you the different tools that you need to succeed in your business. But what we also want to do is that we also want to bring on veterans to interview that are pursuing their passions and their dreams, and they're successful. And what that way we can inspire other people to say, hey, if he could do it, I can do it. So part of what we're doing here, like I said, I wanted to bring in Mario from Fallen 360, because Mario, prior U.S. Army soldier, he was 13 Bravo, so he was a gun bunny. I was 13 Foxtrot. I was an FO, so I was his eyes, he was the bang bang. And like I say, he went from being gun bunny to now he's pursuing his passion, podcasting. And he also runs year-round Patriot Woodworking. What's the food truck, Mario?
Sorry.
You
caught me off guard.
If you've ever listened to Fallen 360,
it's the Healthy Mason jar.
The Healthy Mason jar. That's right. If you ever listen to Fallen 360,
I was trying to find something clever to say, and then I was like, nothing came to my head. So,
but if you ever listen to Fallen 360, since I think episode 1, your timing has always been so off.
Always.
That's like your signature, though. So if your timing wasn't off, I think something was wrong.
Yes.
So,
so first of all, I want to say thank you, but I love the tone of your voice. It's so soft, so different than my co-host on Fallen 360. And like Chris said, if you've ever been on that, if you've ever heard that show, that's Crystal, right? She's a little bit louder than us, but anyways, thanks, man. Yes, you're right. Fallen 360 got year-round Patriot, and then we've got a Healthy Mason jar as our food truck. And me and Crystal both are veterans, and we both have real jobs too. So it's all
and kids
and kids too. Yeah. Yep. So it's when you talk about finding new things to keep you busy, volunteering, and just kind of working, and even making a little bit of extra cash and pursuing your passions. I guess you could say we can check all those boxes.
Absolutely. So tell people a little bit about you, about your background, like how did you join the Army and everything like that. And then he's a graphic artist. He does artwork. I'm in the studio right now, just seeing the different work and things that he does. I've seen a lot of his artwork and stuff like that. So again, you could be 11 Bravo, you can be ground pound or whatever, doing a bunch of hooah shit, but we're trying to inspire people to follow the passions in their heart. You know what I'm saying? So tell everybody kind of a little bit about your background like that, and how you started, but what drove you to start really pursuing what you wanted to do.
Yeah, man. I joined in 2003. I think I was 23 years old at the time. So I kid that I was older, because in reality, that is older, right?
You were, yeah.
Most kids are 17, 18 when they're joining, right? So I was 23 years old. I was an old guy there. I always wanted to join, even when I was in high school, right? But coming from Mexican parents, like, no, mijo, you cannot join the military. I don't want you to die. You know, they have no understanding. You know, I'm a first generation. No, I'm not even a first generation. I was born in Mexico myself. So, you know, I didn't have that background in my family for, you know, a military background.
Right.
So they didn't understand that. So every time that I tried to join or even talked about it, I was always, you know, blocked essentially,
Shot down,
right?
yeah.
Shot down. So, but eventually, you know, I did it, you know, and I looked at the National Guard, and I was like, well, those guys fight fires, and they do all kinds of cool stuff here in the States. And I was going through a divorce at the time too, so you know, there's a lot of stuff going on in my life, and I was like, I needed some kind of change, right? And I wanted to stay home or close to home, from what I understood from what my research had told me, right?
Yeah.
And
I was gonna say what your recruiter told you.
well, before my recruiter. So I was like, I like all this stuff, you know, because law enforcement, even fire department, all that stuff always interested me. So to be honest with you, I didn't really understand what all this was, right? I was just kind of, like I said, I didn't have that background. I didn't grow up with a military family. Nobody really to explain to me what it was. I think I had one cousin that had joined the army like in the late 80s, early 90s, something like that. So that was about it. Right now it's 2003 and I've got nobody to guide me. So I'm just literally researching myself. And I found a recruiter, you know, National Guard. I go up there and they, you know, I do my ASVAB like everybody else. And, you know, my scores come back and they're like, well, you've got all these different options. And, you know, you could do this, you can do that. You can be a fueler, you can be this. But our unit is, we have mainly artillery, 13 Bravos, right? And there's also a bonus for that too. What does a 13 Bravo do? I asked, you know, or cannon crew member, as he made it sound. He goes, you make things go boom. And I was like, and I get $10,000? Sign me up. Sign me up. So I didn't know any better. I mean, I didn't know I wasn't going to make $80,000 a year when I got out of the military, like my recruiter promised, you know. All I thought was like, this is it. I've made it. Like,
you can if you're a merc,
I guess, yeah, right. But
yeah,
so that was it, man. That's how I joined, went to basic training, came back, and yep, I had no understanding of, even then, I still, obviously I went through basic, but I still didn't really understand what the National Guard did other than my job, right? I actually wanted to go active duty. As soon as I finished basic, I was like, I love this. I want to continue doing it. And I actually did start talking to an active duty recruiter when I got back. Comes back about a month later, says, hey, guess what? I can't go forward with your paperwork because you've been placed on hold. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck that means. So I started talking to, you know, National Guard folks, and I was like, well, how can I get an active duty job with the National Guard? How can I go active? And they're like, well, we'll look into it. We'll see what there is. Of course, being a private, there was nothing for me, you know?
Right.
And, but a month later, I get a call from one of my sergeants, says, hey, I got a job for you. I was like, a job? I was like, yeah. He's like, full-time in the National Guard. Awesome. He's like, yep, you're going to get orders. So just show up Monday at 6 a.m. Cool. I show up. There's this other freaking private there. And he's like, dude, aren't you excited? I was like, yeah, man, we're going to get to work full time. And I get to wear the uniform. And remember, I had just graduated basic training no more than 2 months ago. So I was super excited. You know, I was squared away. I was squared away. My uniform looked sharp. I looked sharp. I was still in great shape. And he's like, yeah, man, it's going to be awesome, bro. We're going to Iraq. I was like, wait, what? That's how I found out we were getting deployed from another fucking private. But this NCO is like, he's like, yeah, I got you a job. I was like,
got you a job.
Right. So finally, yeah, we get into formation. Turns out I was part of the advance party for our unit. Ended up going to Fort Hood for 6 months. Then about a year, little over a year after that in Iraq, right? And it was a great, I grew up. I'll tell you what, I grew up in that 18-month deployment from training all the way to the end. I grew up a lot. You know, I learned a lot about the military. And at this point, 2 years into the military, I had done nothing but active duty now, because basic training 4 months, and then a year and a half or a little bit over, you know, training and deployed. So at this point, I was like, okay, cool. I don't know if I like this so much anymore, because it was tough, right?
Right.
But I wanted to go active duty still. I don't know if I can go back to just this 1 week in a month thing. I wasn't used to that. I hadn't done it.
Right. And
so I come back, and then, you know, like I said, I was going through divorce at the time, but I was still trying to make things work. My family, with my son, they ended up back here in Arizona. I was like, all right, well, I got to go back there. I got to go chase. I can't be away from my son anymore. So I came here, and that's how I ended up back in Arizona.
Okay.
And I stopped going to drill.
Okay.
Dude, I stopped going for about, because at that time you didn't have to go to drill for like 3 months when you first came back from Iraq.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Because they gave you like those 90 days or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I didn't. But after a while, I started getting calls like, hey, you're supposed to be coming back. So 8 months later, I get a call like, dude, you're going to be AWOL if you don't come back. So I literally didn't show up for 8 months. I said, fine, I have to transfer. So I ended up transferring to Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Came here to an awesome unit, one of my favorite fucking units that I was ever in, another artillery unit. I got soldier of the year. I mean, I went up the ranks. That's where I got,
the first 180th.
Eventually, yep, first the 180th.
That was part of that. Yeah. I was the FO. I was 13 Foxtrot there.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
but I got out in 03.
So you got out, yeah. And this was, by this time it was already 06. 2006. So but then they got rid of artillery. Got rid of artillery, so I had to find a new home. And to make a long story long. I ended up with a public affairs unit, and someone said, hey, you've got a year left. If you want to go to public affairs, you'll learn a lot. You love video, you love audio, you love all this other technical digital shit. Why don't you just go to public affairs, go to their school, get trained, and then when you get out, you can do your own shit. And I did, and they go, and plus the last time they got deployed, they went to Florida, CENTCOM. Cool. Join, month later, fucking going to Iraq. So I ended up in Iraq again. I had to grow up again in a whole different world, right? Learn digital media and all that stuff. And so that's really what kind of opened my eyes to this whole new world. And at the end of the day, dude, I did 11 years in the fucking military. I was deployed to the border mission. I was gone to Iraq twice. I learned media. I learned about artillery. I learned some fucking infantry shit amongst all the different training that I went through. I mean, you name it, there was a lot of different shit, No, I wasn't fucking like a fucking special forces guy. No, I wasn't a ranger or anything else, but I learned a ton of shit about life. Right. And that's what I'm here to say, is that don't ever, close any doors, because you never know what you're going to learn. And so if I would have said no to all these different trainings and schools and opportunities in the military, I don't think it would have gave me that courage to do the things that we talked about at the beginning, to do them now. Right. And so that's kind of my weird, military story. And I'll end it with this. The last 3 years, because it was a really weird history for me in the military. I did a lot of weird shit that most people don't do. These jobs, right, from going from artillery to public affairs to working on layout design of a newspaper, to working with Yellow Ribbon. Yellow Ribbon programs, where I learned to give back to other veterans, to education, to money, to therapy. I learned all the ins and outs and the intricacies of all that shit, and the VA and the Department of Veteran Services. And that's where I kind of learned all that. And then eventually it led me to, my career after the military, which then led me to fucking meeting you, right? Because you were kind of involved.
Your life.
You were involved in the same shit. I was actually working for a nonprofit at that time, and you were in the same world, and I think from there, kind of our passions just led us to go down the same path. And now here we are. And eventually I said, you know what, I could reach more people with the podcast, and maybe I'll just have, do something fun, something real. So that's what got me where I am now.
All right. And then, like I said, it's, how long have you been into art? Have you always been to art since you were a little kid, or like?
Art's always been, yes, since I was a kid. I'll tell you what, in the military, I kind of lost that, right? Especially when I was doing artillery shit, because you're around a bunch of dudes,
right.
You don't got time for art, right? Who's got time for that? And I was busy going to schools and trying to, progress in my career and shit like that. But when I got out of the military, I kind of started back up, and I found out that's another great freaking way of form of therapy.
Okay.
So, obviously from there, went into woodwork, then talking year-round patriot now. So year-round patriots, started off as it still is a hobby, but I've sold woodwork, so that's not bad. Little extra income, little money in my pocket. But got into, painting and, military related stuff. Most of the paintings you see here, right there, the one behind me, that's all my stuff. It's all military related, all that digital artwork.
We'll have pictures on the Instagram and Facebook and all that.
So that's how, that's a whole other thing that I just got into just for fun. It turns out that it was actually helpful.
That's awesome. So tie that all in. How, you started out really more as an artist as you were a kid. You end up joining the military, and you're 13 Bravo. You're doing public relations work and things like that. And then now, like I said, pursuing the things like the podcast and you're around Patriot, things like that. So how did that correlate? Like, how did you say, okay, why? How did one inspire the other, or lead to the other?
Well, I think the podcast one was inspired by the fact that, and you can probably attest to this too, right? There's a lot of programs out there trying to help veterans. They say they know veterans, but the reality is that it's run by non-veterans. And even the people that are veterans, they're not really looking out for the veterans. They're looking out for their pockets. And I'm talking about, there's nonprofits and other organizations too, including some government organizations out there, right? They're not connecting with real veterans, and so I was like, I didn't want to be part of that world anymore. So I was like, I want to do something where I'm connecting with the real veterans. The language that we speak, it's not the shit that they talk about, in these freaking board meetings, people in suits. And you remember, remember when, going to my old office, and remember how we used to walk around and the trainings we used to do, walking around in suits and ties and talking this weird fucking language that nobody fucking cares or understands. Not any real veterans.
Right.
When I looked at the rosters of the people we were training, it was all fucking government employees. Yeah. Some of them happened to be veterans, or they were therapists, or it was everybody else that had some sort of interest in helping veterans or get money from the veterans. But it was never the real veterans that needed the help. They weren't the ones attending this, because guess what? The flyers, the verbiage that we use, none of that was getting their attention. So it was one big circle jerk where, the government, whoever else was, the nonprofits, they were all just patting each other on the back, training each other and writing, freaking fake numbers. To me, it was all fake numbers, man. It's all about a numbers game. And when I saw that, I was like, and here the real veterans are out there. They're not coming to our trainings. They're not coming to our events. You look around and you'd look at these trainings.
You get a bunch of corporate douchebags walking in.
Yes. And like I said, even veteran, I was one of myself. Suit and tie and this and that, and you just tell yourself you're doing these great things, and so I'm like, I need to do my own shit. And so that's when I started the podcast, and we wanted to just be real. And I figured, at first, we were trying to give advice, and we were telling people, do this, do that, and that's kind of where you came in. You were introduced to us by another veteran doing the same thing. I believe it was Jessica, right?
Yep, Jessica Rosa. Yep.
And she's doing amazing stuff too. And and so we all kind of hooked up, and you were doing a lot of great stuff for veterans as far as like financial advice and things like that. And I was like, that's awesome. And you came on the show and you talked about financial advice, and you came on a few times and talked about different things. Eventually the show evolved to where now we just talk, right? And me and Crystal, now Crystal's my partner in crime. She's also a veteran. And we talk about anything and everything, right? We have segments. We talk about serial killers. We talk about, we also interview, veterans that are doing great stuff in the community, which, you will be on the show on season 2. This will be your first time on season 2. You've been on season 1 like numerous times. In fact, you even co-hosted or hosted the show a few times, and you helped me out when I was in a bind. So I appreciate that. Thank you. And that's what we do for each other.
Absolutely. Yeah, but full disclosure. Yeah. I was the first interview that they had on Fallen 360. So I made it a point when I started this podcast that Mario was going to be my first interview. Yeah. Because that's just the way we do it.
But in a couple of weeks, or depending on when this show drops, you're going to be on, I think it's the 24th.
Correct.
You're going to be on that on Fallen 360, and we're going to talk the same, like what motivates you, what do you do that motivates others? So like I said, that's what me and Crystal do. The conversation is open to anything, because guess what? That's what veterans do. We talk about everything and anything. If you were to tell me that, there's no veterans that like comic books, full of shit.
Yeah.
Veterans love arguing about comic books.
Oh yeah.
Veterans are nerds. Veterans love guns. Veterans love woodwork. Veterans love artwork, right?
We're not just a bunch of, mouth breathers walking around with helmets and, guns and shit. Like, we have like minds and
there are some.
Well, those are the Marines. So
yeah, there you go. Yeah. But at the end of the day, that's what we wanted to do is just, we evolved, I guess is what I'm trying to say. We evolved from what we started off as in season 1. And the reason why I have seasons is because I came up with this whole theory of like, I couldn't keep doing this podcast with all the other stuff we were doing on the side and with all our volunteer work and things like that every week and have the same enthusiasm. So I was like, I need to come up with real themes, right? So I put a pause, and we ended up with 75 episodes in season 1. And I put a pause, and for a few months, I gathered all my thoughts. I created these new themes where we talk about, actual themes that involve, that veterans would enjoy. And at the same time, other people would enjoy too, because I figure if we can bring veterans and civilians together to listen to the same shit and gather and talk to each other online and social media and things like that, that's what we really need. We need veterans to just adapt. We need veterans to just be like everybody else when it comes out, because here's the deal. There's only a small percentage of, I think less than 10% of the population are veterans.
Right.
We can't expect the civilians to adapt to our style. We have to adapt to their style if we want to be successful, right? Just like any mission, you have to adapt to be successful on the outside, right? And same thing with your finances, right? Same thing with your jobs. You can't, I always disliked, and I don't say hate because hate's such a strong word, especially when it comes to my fellow veterans, but I really, really, really dislike when veterans come out and say, fuck civilians, they don't know what I've been through, and I ain't gonna report to a civilian boss. I'm that's not me. I'm gonna do me, and I'm gonna be who I am. I am not gonna adapt. And they go from one job to another job to another job. And at the end of the day, they're not successful, and neither are the rest of the veterans out there, because they give us veterans that are really trying to do good for our families, our community, they give us a bad name, right? And so my whole thing is we need to integrate. People always say, well, there's a veteran organization, you should go do that, and it's all just veterans. That's great, because you will find positivity. You'll find people that know what you've been through, which is also a good thing. But I also suggest that people join a freaking regular gym or a regular club or somewhere else where there's regular people, so that you learn to adapt. They learn how you are and why you are the way you are. And you learn why the fuck civilians do civilian shit, right? Right. Because at the end of the day, you got to remember, you were civilian too before you joined the military. For the most part of your life, you were a civilian. So a lot of it is just a front too. These guys don't want to get out of that fucking life.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, to be successful,
it's almost kind of like being institutionalized in a way. Like if you got a guy who's been in prison for a while, something like that, and then to get out in the outside world, they're used to that structured environment. They're used to that. Okay, we're going to get up at dark 30, we're doing PT, and after that we're doing this and such, blah blah blah. And where now, it's all on you.
It is.
Yeah, it's all on you. Like, you're 100% accountable for your shit,
for all your stuff. And I'm not saying to lose that veteran side of you. Always hold on to that. Hold on to a lot of those.
I think that's the thing that we try to do here in the show too. Is like, there are just some times where we don't fit with the civilian crowd, right? Things like that. Where, but I want you to hone those skills. Take the skills that you learned. You know what I mean? And like I said, so a lot of things that you had said that by accepting the training that you took and doing the things that you did, it inspired you knew you could start a podcast because you knew you could do it, because you just had that confidence in yourself that you can get this done, or whether it was Year-Round Patriot or Healthy Mason Jar, you knew, and you were confident enough in your own self that you said, hey, I could do this. We can do this. Crystal and I can do this. So
I definitely learned that in the military.
Yeah. So I want the veterans to be inspired. Again, sometimes, like I said, you're kind of in that thing where you're doing different jobs, and like you aren't fitting in or whatever. Maybe you need to start your own business.
That's true too.
Maybe you just need to do your own thing. And now, again, when it comes into, everybody wants to start this nonprofit and save all these people and do all this kind of stuff. There's a lot of nonprofits out there you can go volunteer time with. We're talking about if you want to start a business, you got to start like an actual business, profitability, and things like that.
Yeah,
but
be realistic, right?
Yeah,
be realistic with your goals. And also, here's the other piece too: know yourself.
Right.
You really have to know yourself. Like, if you really think that you're not going to adapt, first of all, I say try to adapt. But if you really know yourself, you get to know what you really want. That's the key.
But that's like any entrepreneur, though, whether they're civilian or military, non-military, or whatever. There's just something entrepreneurial spirit. Some people just have it. Like they can't conform to the corporate. They have this thing where I want to do it this way.
Right.
I want to do my own thing. Where again, that's what we're trying to inspire people to do such things. But I like what you're saying too. Is like, hey, you know what? We are the smallest minority in this country.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We have to adapt to civilian life because we can't go around, telling our employees, grab some real estate, knock out 25.
Exactly.
I mean? Although I have done that before, but that's
a different story, right? Yeah. So, I mean, we used to do training for civilians to understand military culture, which is all great. And it was fun training. But at the end of the day, nobody's going to adapt to your style. It's all fun and games. Civilians, a lot of these companies do it because it's the cool thing to do at the time. But when that goes away, when the wars go away, they're not here.
Right.
They're not here.
Exactly. So we're coming up on our time here. So just quickly, if you want to wrap it up, what do you have to say to the veterans that are out there other than subscribe to Fallen 360 podcast?
Yeah, man, just be you. Know yourself. Really do get to know what you want. Know what you're about. That's really what's going to guide you, right? Because if you don't start with that, if you don't know who you really are, what you're really about, then it's going to be hard to start your own business, nonprofit, whatever it is. Those things are all on the table, but look at it. Take a really good, close look at yourself and listen to Fallen 360 and all our fucking stupid antics and stories that we have to say, because at the end of the day, that'll just kind of, bring you back to, the old days. We have a show, one of the episodes or one of the segments is called Tales from the Guard Tower.
Right.
So everything and anything you might have talked in the Guard Tower, it's all up for grabs in this episode. So
that's it. So I wanted to thank you again, Mario, not only, like I said, for helping me with the technical gear, getting the audio up to speed and things like that, taking your time, having me be on your show, everything you've done for me and our listeners here. Just want to say thank you very much for letting me record in your studio today, as a matter of fact.
Of course, buddy. And
then as I close out the show, as I normally do, like I said, first of all, I got to give all glory to Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, because without him, I wouldn't even be here to do all this stuff. I got to thank my family, my wife, and my children for supporting me and everything that I'm doing. And of course, if you want to contact us, give us some feedback, good, bad, or indifferent, you can email us at info@vetsforbiz.us. Give us some feedback on the show, listen in. And of course, we always thank Mario and Crystal from Fallen 360, but now you've heard it from the man himself. And I'm actually going to get Crystal on because she's another inspiring story too. Because not only is she a soldier, she's a cancer survivor. She's a therapist.
Yeah.
I call her the American badass. So she's pretty awesome. So
you might have to adjust your audio for her because she's got a little bit of a higher pitched voice.
Yeah, I'm going to turn that mic down a lot.
I had to buy special mics just for her. So,
all right. So that'll wrap it up for this episode number 6 of Here's the Deal. And like I said, if you have any comments or feedback, give us a shout. We're out.